Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. The World Cup is officially underway. The Czech Republic hosted the inaugural round of the 2025-2026 Cyclocross World Cup. Tabor, it's good to be back here. 2 years ago the World Championships were here. After that they sat out last year and now we are back here in the opening round, and this race always delivers, Issam. The conditions here can be very fluctuable. We can have snow, we can have other conditions. Today it was frozen, and as always they make a great spectacle from it. We have this time live streams for all the youth categories. That's something new, and yeah, I'm glad that you're here to discuss all of that, Issam.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And that was indeed a great sight to have those junior categories streamed, the first round of the World Cup for them as well. And yeah, I think it was, Tabor is always a race in which at times it can be boring, at times it can be quite tactical. And I think today we got a course that was, with the circumstances, was a bit tricky because the circuit was changing a little bit. And I think that made the racing also quite interesting throughout the day.
For sure, an interesting day of racing. Last time at the World Championships they broadcasted the mixed relay here, so they're always doing their best to facelift the event. It really is one of the great World Cups. I have been fortunate to attend the World Cup there once and the World Championships the year after that, so it was nice. I wasn't there this weekend. It is a bit far away, but above all I am working with Eurocross Academy still, so if you hear some noise in the background, that is because some bikes are being broken down here to go into the airplane. Let's go to the men's elite race first, Issam. We discussed it last week quite extensively in the podcast about Merckxplas and Hamme. Thibau Nys, with his win in Hamme, he showed a style and display that we haven't really seen that often from him. But today he once again did that. In the start, he was up there. The stuff of the bad starts of Thibau Nys, that seems to be something of the past. He's going at it from the first lap. He's really gunning. And we saw him up the front with Joris Nieuwhuis. When Nieuwhuis crashed, he was gone. He opened quite a large gap, seemed in cruise control, didn't really have to go hard in the final 15 minutes of the race. Could already start thinking about the endurance training that he has coming up this week. It was a phenomenal display, and what you said last week, Issam, about the state of Thibau Nys, like if we can do this more often, we can really start talking about him as the best of these riders, worthy of your top spot on the mountain. I'm curious because in this situation, Issam, do you think that we can maybe start talking more realistically about Thibau Nys posing a threat to Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel when they come in cross? In previous years, we've been quite critical of that narrative, but we also haven't had one rider be that far above the other cross riders that are there in this phase of the season.
I think I need to see a little bit more, but I can definitely understand that the discussion would slowly but surely be, a more realistic talk, rather than something that is just trying to be a bit positive and trying to, to have a story before Van der Poel enters the field. I think that today was definitely a very strong outing. It was, I think, from all the riders that we have currently, in the field, I think he was the rider that with that race on the Koppenberg really showed something that we haven't seen so far this season. And after that, it was a bit difficult to, emulate that into the races. And I think that, from Hamme, it might have been a switch in which he kind of just, tried a different approach of racing. And I think today he was super eager, started very strong. And you just see it that the race comes to you and the others are, they don't really like that. And that's also kind of the way that Van der Poel won his races from a couple of years ago, even, that he was trying to really put them under pressure early on in the race, have a gap and work on that gap. And then when you have the gap that is quite comfortable and you can kind of cover mechanicals and crashes and all that, you kind of just make sure that you keep it going and maintain the gap. And I think today he showed that he had that skill. And yeah, he maybe got a course as well that suited him well. He could use the power, he could use his technique in a way, and overall he was almost faultless. With just a mistake left and right, and that was it, really. There were just, I think, 2-3 mistakes. And so he was today on a roll, and he was very good, and it is something that I was hoping to see from him. And I think he also is in a phase of his career in which he has to show these type of things in a race, these type of results, these types of performances. So it's good to see. And we have to wait and see how he will continue on with this, if he's going to be able to do this more often, then I think we can definitely start talking about him being the closest to Van der Poel. If is this going to be enough, it might depend more on the form of Van der Poel than on Nys. But this was for him today was a very, very strong outing, and I think that he deserves all the praises today.
Nys is still not the most consistent rider in the world. He had, of course, that off day kind of in Hamme, in Lokeren. Similarly, there's always some races in which something happens to Nys. Last year we had a very long phase of that. From the win in Lokeren, afterwards he gifted that third place to Van der Haar and Merckxplas, and then it was just 1 month of bad result after bad result. There were a lot of difficulties to get everything going and get like the good results, but over the Christmas period he did. And this year I think we're seeing a continuation of that. A Thibau Nys that has a flawless race is just one of the best riders, and today was really another impressive display by him. So can he beat Van Aert and Van der Poel? I agree with your points. It depends how good they are, and it depends how good Nys is. But certainly the way Nys dominates the rest of the field now is not something that we have seen that much earlier. Okay, we had Iserbyt dominate, but that was in a different fashion. Not often start to finish. Team tactics were involved. And it was also Eli Iserbyt who we knew peaked for that part of the season. Whereas for Nys, we know he's allegedly building into the season and now also doing still a lot of endurance training. The day before the European Championships, he did a 5.5 hour endurance ride in function of the road season. It was not his main goal to perform there. He still finished second. So I think that is an interesting dynamic to follow and see how Nys will do throughout the rest of the season and if he can come closer. If we look at the riders behind, just off the podium, there was a big battle. There were earlier in the race, mainly Michael van Toerenhout being the one that was setting the pace, but he crashed in the final corner coming onto the tarmac and hurt his shoulder. That was not ideal for him. We can only hope that he's not too hurt. He did finish the race, so that indicated at least that his collarbone was intact, because that is what I was scared for initially. Then in the second half, because of the fast nature of the course, things kind of grouped together. The sunny sections were kind of melting, becoming softer. That's where we saw a bunch of mistakes. I mentioned an earlier crash by Nieuwenhuis. He finished third. Michels was always up there, just finishing off the podium. Verstringen made a strong impression, but crashed. And ultimately, it was Zweek who kind of rode, in my opinion at least, anonymously to that second place. But it was a strong ride for him. He certainly wasn't up there all race, but to beat Nieuwenhuis is a positive sign for him. And I know we've been quite critical of him until the European Championships, but his form is on the up. Not just that win in Niel, he was solid in Hamme, and now second in the first World Cup is definitely something to go forward for with Laurens Zweek this season.
Absolutely, I think that he grew again throughout the race, and I think that is now kind of his way of doing it. And I feel that that he has been on the up. It's looking better and better, and he's. He didn't always have the best of luck, but it is definitely in great time to kind of, get through the race as well and be able to string those good results. And, for him being able to finish on the podium, I think also had to do a little bit as well with the circumstances. Verstringen, you said he crashed, not once, I don't even think twice, it was I think 3 or 4 times he crashed, and influenced also a little bit how the race developed because of those crashes. The pace was kind of ruined because of that, because Verstringen at one point was leading that pack of 3-4 riders, and that enabled riders like Michels to return and actually have it a little bit easier to get back. And the circumstances definitely helped him. Someone like Van Toerenhout as well crashing out there. But then again, you have to finish it off, and there were races that we were looking at a Zweek that was not even able to play a role in the top 5. And now it seems that he is able to do that when he has a good day, and I think that is a positive from what looked like it was going to be a very difficult season. But I feel that he definitely bounced back, is on the up, and it looks better than before for sure. And that is kind of what he needs. And, now he kind of propelled his classification ambitions to a new level, and he can definitely try and, see that as a goal and try to, score points left and right in the World Cup and see where that ends up.
That's also the nature of the cyclocross season, right? We, with the start of the World Cup, have entered a new phase. The early season is over. We're now in the middle part of the season, the training camp part, and then we come to the Christmas part. So the results early on mean pretty much nothing because, yeah, okay, you have the Super Prestige and the X2O, but that's just some money things. If you really want to come in when it's crunch time and be good in these classifications by the end of it, you need to maintain your form throughout this part of the season, regain some freshness for that super busy Christmas period. That's just the nature of the season, and you can see always it happens every year. Some riders have a slow start and move into form now. Others have it the opposite way. They start really good and they slowly burn out throughout the season. So with Sveik, it seems that he is on the first trajectory, what I said, that he's on the up and seems to be improving. Nieuwenhuis is kind of what I expected on a course like this. This isn't perfect for him. He made a solid impression, unfortunate of that crash earlier on. Michels, I'm maybe changing my perspective on him a little bit, Issam. He's been very close to the podium a number of times now. Still, I feel with Michels the thing is he's always there, but he never does something that amazes me. But with these performances, like consistently being so far up there, I felt that in previous episodes I had been perhaps a bit too negative. I'm not the biggest believer in Jente Michels. I don't think he's a super talent, but he has made quite a big step because last year he was finishing roughly 10th to 8th position. And if we look at his last results, they've been all 8th to 4th position. So I'm still waiting for Jente Michels to get on that podium and do like a performance that fully excites me. But on the other hand, like today, he impressed me because he was consistent, bridged that gap to the group for the podium, and unlike Emil Verstringen, who you rightfully point out crashed more than once, he made a number of mistakes. Like Michels didn't. He was very smooth, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that at some point Michels should finish on the podium.
It is a bit difficult because I think today he had a very good chance, but Nieuwenhuis was also very eager, and he believed in maybe even trying to catch Sveik back, but at a certain point he just realized, okay, this is going to be for third. And for Michels, it was just difficult to deal with someone like Nieuwenhuis on the last lap. You don't really have a lot of options when you race against a Nieuwenhuis for someone like Michels. So yeah, there's then not much really can do about it. But I think you definitely should give him the props. I'm not really that critical on his results. I think that it's just the issue that I somewhat have with the performances and the results that he is so far he had is. There's nothing really notable. It's a fourth place. It's outside of the podium. I would like to see that podium, and that is what he has to try and aim for right now. You have to reward yourself, I guess, for the form that he is having right now, and he needs to deliver at some point with a podium, and I think that he has it in him. And hopefully, when we get a bit close to that Christmas period, and there are definitely some races there that I think he will be, that suit him well. And if he has the form, he can definitely perform well. But then, of course, there will be other riders joining the field. And, who knows what that is going to make for a difference. So that is kind of how I look at it. It's not that I don't think that Michels is a great rider, because I think that he is definitely one of the, one of the very talented riders that Belgium has at the moment. I think that Verstringen is maybe a bit more talented, but Michels is definitely up there somewhat, and that is definitely something that I respect, and I see that potential. I really just want to see a notable result, and today was again a chance for him to do so, and he was again just not really able to finish it off. And today wasn't really, the opportunity wasn't really there, because you have Sveik and Nieuwenhuis fighting for a podium, two guys that on a last lap very difficult to beat if you don't really have that fast last lap. So there is there's no issue with that, and he's on for the next one and try to to continue what he is doing, and then the podium will most likely fall your way one time.
Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Nys, Zweek, Nieuwenhuis, Michels and Verstringen was your top 5. 4 Belgians and 2 Dutchies. Just outside of the top 5, Ryan Kamp in 6th place ahead of Lars van der Haar. Actually a good race by van der Haar, but he was held up in that crash with Van Toerenhout. Bit weird, perhaps it was slippery that he kind of took that outside line there right into Van Toerenhout. maybe could have been avoidable. He rode a fairly good race, and we alluded to that last week as well, that his form seems to be improving. 8th place for Thibau Nys. He's been sick, not really getting the most out of that European jersey so far. Cameron Mason in 9th and Niels van der Putte in 10th. Van der Putte still remaining inconsistent, Issam, but I think the performance that we should allude here is Ryan Kamp. 6th place today, really impressive. I believe this is his best World Cup finish in the elite category.
Yeah, and I think if he didn't make that mistakes there on the barriers, it could have been maybe potentially even a 5th place. So because of the mistake of Verstringen again on the last lap there. So very good race from Kamp. I should not be too critical on that. I think that he definitely rode a very strong race. We have seen flashes from Kamp doing so, and then it's kind of, for me at least, it's very hard then to judge him, because then you see that he is able to do that, and then you see other races and it's Kamp in 14th, or Kamp in maybe even fighting to just be in the top 20. So it's just a bit difficult, and he also is a rider that has sometimes a very clean first lap, and sometimes he is in the middle of chaos, and that is something that that also influences his results a little bit. What did Kamp witness this time on the first lap? But he was now able to get through it quite okay, and got his race in, and I think that he just was able to get in a very good rhythm. And that's also what you kind of saw today. You saw like these little groups, and when you are just in that right group, or you're able to kind of break away from a certain group, and you can bridge the next group, you need to have the legs for that. But it's also kind of the momentum that you're in the race, because if you end up in a group where nobody really wants to pull, you easily lose like a couple of seconds here and there, and that can influence your race quite significantly. So he was in the right groups, he was moving great through the race, and I think that he got rewarded by a great effort.
Certainly. I think for the rest in the top 10, Cameron Mason, 9th, very strong ride. His lap times were right up there with the front runners. He just had a very wobbly first lap. He is in tremendous form right now, and it's really good to see, and I just hope that he can hold this form. Andrew Strohmeyer then, he was in the top 10 for a long time. This is by far the best ride of his career. He loves this course. This is where I think 3 years ago, that is now, as a second year U23, he did really well. He finished 6th. Together with like the fast races, that's where we've seen Strohmeyer do well. And today with these frozen conditions, he found that. His hopping over the barriers was also very impressive. But ultimately, the lights just went out, and I don't think there's anything to be critical of, because he rode to the best of his ability, and he tried to get in those groups. He tried to be aggressive. He made a play for it, and I don't think there's anything to be overly critical about. He just didn't have the legs in the end to finish in the top 10, but it was a close one, and that was one of my preseason predictions, which is kind of why I'm alluding to it. That was written on our Substack, but maybe later on, I do think this was one of the best opportunities for Strohmeyer to get a top 10. But remember back to the episode about Baltimore, he said, my season starts November 6th in Washington. He won there. Now here with a 12th place, I guess it's something for him to take away from that. Then let's go to the women's race, Issam. There we had a more close battle for the win. It eventually decided in the final lap. We had Brandt and Van der Heijden making some moves early on. Bentveld was in the mix. But in the end, two-way battle. Casasola came across. Brandt and Casasola fighting it out. Casasola made a move before the barriers. Placed an attack, couldn't get it done. Brandt wins. Kind of more of the same, although I did like Casasola. Her overtake is something that I haven't seen from her too often.
Yeah, that was a good move. I really like that move, but it was there was not really much she could have done differently. I guess I think it was, Brandt was also able to lead out at the most critical point, I guess, and from there on was just able to, come into that last corner already with a gap. Was able to put Casasola under some serious pressure, and the victory was hers. And that we kind of knew that Brandt, when she is powering her way, it's just very difficult for the others to follow. But I guess they did a solid job today, and I think the circumstances definitely helped as well, because it was rather fast. That it is also, I wouldn't say easier to follow, but it encourages, I guess, a little bit. And yeah, that also kind of changes the way you have to race, and I think that Casasola adapted quite well, was able to sit behind Brandt also when it mattered a little bit. I think that was also a good side to see that Brandt was I wouldn't say forced to the lead, but she had to like chase, because when Van der Heijden and Casasola kind of tried to attack one after the other, trying to put Brandt a little bit under pressure, and those moves were definitely things that I like to see. But yeah, in the end, there's just not really much you can do against a very strong Brandt, and she showed it today again. I think it was a smart ride in the end. I was a bit worried in the beginning because I thought, well, she's really trying to be at the front a lot, and it almost felt like it was some sort of a lead out. But eventually she had the tactics laid out well, and she was able to finalize and get the victory.
I found myself wondering what Casasola needs to do to eventually win one of these races, and on a course like today, it's just very hard to beat Lucinda Brandt. She's very powerful, she's known for her strong final laps. In fact, that Casasola even got that move done before the barriers was interesting, because that's not normally something that Brandt has done to her, but at the same time, I often feel like Brandt in the final lap underestimates the fact that people can overtake her. Remember back to the World Championship, she didn't properly defend her space. Van Empel made the move, and afterwards Brandt was complaining. Brandt also kind of complained earlier about Casasola in such a situation, so it's tricky to see how you should beat Brandt here. I guess the solution is just add 30 watts to her FTP and drop her, but that's very easier said than done. So it's very tricky for Casasola to win such races. She needs to have it from moves like that, but then Brandt was just too strong. Technically, they were evenly matched in the sections, so maybe if Casasola was fresher, there'd have been an opportunity, but you could kind of see it like when Brandt took the lead, where she placed that overtake, and kind of led by the second pit. She already pulled away, not necessarily because of cornering, but more because of the acceleration out of it. That's a sign that Brandt just had slightly more left in the tank at that point. Van der Heijden then, Issam, what did you think of her race?
Good question. I mean, it was all right. It was not bad. She was able to kind of get in the mix. I felt that there were some signs where you could see that it was not, I wouldn't say not her best day, but maybe she had better days this season, I think. I don't know if the malfunction of the leg warmers, they probably didn't really help, but I don't think that was a big issue. But overall, I think it was a solid race. She was able to be there, but you could kind of see that she was just kind of not really able to play a major role, and that it was going to be between Casasola and Brandt. And there is no shame in that. I think that it was still, as I said, a very solid outing.
Solid is the word I would use. I thought her first half of the race was quite good. At that point, I thought, maybe she can make a push for the win. She put Brandt under some pressure, but it never really materialized. So that's unfortunate, but like we concluded earlier as well, she's clearly in good form right now. She's carrying that on from the European Championship. She's carrying that all the way through here. We discussed that there was the rumor that she had quite a bad cold, which held her back earlier in the season, and this is the level that I had expected from Van der Heijden before the season, perhaps even a little bit better than that. Behind the top three of Brandt, Casasola and Van der Heijden, we find Bentveld, Van Alphen, Zemanova, Foucounet, Ribeyrol, Clauzel and Betsema. Ribeyrol back from a training accident, not really much to say. An okay outing for her, can't expect too much after being off the bike for such a time. Foucounet, bad start, needed to work hard to recover. These cold conditions definitely took their toll on quite some riders. I mean, Clauzel today never really got going, it felt, and it's just different. Like, it's not the conditions they race in every week. Your body needs to adapt to it, and the travel part and having time to adapt to the cold is also very much a thing for some riders, easier than others. I thought Bentveld delivered a outing which, again, is worth mentioning that it's better than last year, but also not something that we haven't seen so far this season. Similarly, Annick van Alphen, like all these riders up front, we've discussed them quite a lot. They're all doing quite well. They can all be happy about their season. And what I was really happy to see, Issam, was that Kristina Zemanova finished 6th today. She's coming back from long COVID. We've discussed that a number of times. And she's now back, like 6th. This is her type of course, a fast course, not too technical, fast, icy. Like, yeah, this is a good course for Zemanova, and this placement is very encouraging for what's to come from her.
Absolutely, and I think she was very motivated, and she showed it from the start, I guess, and she tried to make the moves and was there till the final lap and tried to, to stay as close as possible to the front as she was able to, and I think that she did a very good job, and it is on the up. The question is really, as you said as well, this is a course that suits her well. And then on top of that, of course, in your own country, that gives a certain motivation as well. The Czechs were definitely giving it a lot of attention. She knew that a lot of attention was given, so she also wanted to, that is just a different. It's a completely different vibe, and it's for a rider. You can definitely see that certain riders can really get a lot out of that energy, and convert that into great results. And I think that is something that we saw today. I think we saw a very motivated Zemanova that was able to negotiate the course very well, was able to hold on to the front quite well. Eventually had to pay a little price, but I think that overall that price was definitely worth it the way she was racing, and she can be very, very happy with 6. It's, maybe she was hoping for more, but I don't even think that was really realistic. So this is definitely a result where she can look back on and say, okay, from here on we have to build and get better and better, and who knows what that will bring. But yeah, I think we have to also take into consideration for sure all those benefits. Home race, circumstances were good, fast. Those are things that you're not going to get next weekend. So that is just something that you have to take, and don't be surprised if the performance next weekend will not be as good as we saw today, but it is on the up, so that's the positive.
The main thing is that the course suited her, so I agree that we should factor that in, but it's still an encouraging sign, because last year she was in a really, really deep hole, and you need to come back from that. I think she only did like one race in Zonhoven. That's the only race where I recall seeing her, at least like in Belgium and the Netherlands. So it's encouraging to see that it's on the up. And for me, it's also on the up from the European Championships. And that upward trajectory is most important. She's working with a new coach. She's working also on a new team now. And those things also take time to settle in. Outside of the top 10, a few riders to discuss. I was impressed by Lucia Bramati, Italian on Fas Airport. She finished 12th. She was in contention for the top 10 quite a while. That was an impressive result by her. Further down, we had Shirin van Anrooy start her cross season, and Gladonova. I guess maybe before this week I had higher expectations from Gladonova, but then I saw that she already raced in Veseli nad Luznici. That was a HFS System Cup race, which was, I believe, on Monday. She finished 6th there. I talked to some people that attended the race. They said, yeah, it wasn't really her goal yet. She's racing here close to home. The real goal for her will be to perform at the World Championships. So I'll leave it at that, and we can see what more is to come from Gladonova. But Van Anrooy, Issam, I'm not sure if we should classify this disappointing. It's perhaps disappointing for some others, but she had the dead last call-up. I already said this a number of times. Like, she's been out 2 seasons. That's a lot of time to come back. I saw her train in Lichtaert this Wednesday, and you could see she was still getting used to the cross bike. In the corners on the flat, she was being dropped by Fleur Morse, like 2 bike lengths put into her. It takes a lot of time to rebuild your confidence on the bike and fully get back. So perhaps I had not expected much more, but that's perhaps also not the expectation that everyone had.
I think I see more positives than negatives, to be honest. I think that it's, as you said, you have to start from last, and then you just try to get through the race as the best you can and to your best abilities as well. And You said it. You said it right. It's there's a lot of confidence that you still have to build and work on, and there's just that routine that has been lacking, that is missing, that you have to work on as well. So I think to be honest that it wasn't bad. And you also get a course, circumstances, all that. It's not really something you can prepare yourself for. Definitely when you have been out for so long, and I think that if you take that into consideration, I don't really see how you could look at this result and be all too negative about it. I think it's, or even that it could be something that was, below the expectations. I think it's somewhat right on there. And she has to build from this, and there will be races that will be better. There could be races that will be worse, and that is just how how it will progress and how she will have to get through the races. And that's just all the experience then that you have to try and use in your advantage, and eventually it will be better and better, because I think Van Anrooy is definitely someone that if she's able to work on those things and able to to grow, she's definitely someone that normally should be able to. I think if you look where she's at right now, a top 10 is definitely something that is achievable this season, in my opinion. So that is something that she has to aim for, and I think it's realistic. I think it's doable, but it all has to come together, and she shouldn't really put too much pressure on it. She should just enjoy and try to learn as much as possible.
You have to restart somewhere, of course, and that's why I agree. It's definitely important to take the positives from this for Van Anrooy. It's, I guess, just that I had read and heard quite a bit like, oh, with Van Anrooy, one of the top contenders is going to return. It won't be that easy for Brandt. Her teammate is going to pose a real threat to her. And look, I ultimately don't know if Van Anrooy fully has that potential to reach that ultimate top level, but she does have a number of very good skills. Her running is supposedly still, at least I assume that hasn't changed, very good, because she used to be a triathlete in the youth and even ran at the Youth Olympics the 800 meters and did very, very well there. So she has skills and has qualities. It's just a matter of like being patient, and that's more the point I was trying to make than being overly negative. If we move to the U23 men's race then, great that this was broadcasted. Hopefully this is not only a one-time thing. It was on the UCI channel with commentary, the full graphics on, but I'm scared it's just a CT Sport thing. Regardless, David Haverdings takes the win. One of my favorite little mantras that I used myself and also like to give to other riders is the time is now. That's something I would always think in like the final 10 laps of a crit or like the final 2 laps of a cross race. The time is now. And in a broader extent, I think for David Haverdings, his time is now. Like, he has to do it now. He is a final year U23. We know he's talented. He's shown those glances, but he needs this, Issam. Like, he needs to get these results. He kind of pulled a rabbit out of the hat in the final lap of the European Championships to finish second. Here also, he never really seemed to be like the guy in the race. I saw Sparvel, I saw Vietzi, a bunch of Belgians up there. But then in the end, like the final lap, once again, there is David Haverdings. Like, he's super smart, he's technically super skilled, and his time is now. Like, he has to get these results to secure a future in the sport. You can't be the eternal talent. You have to show something, and I think with that second place at the European Championships and now this win in Tabor, he's doing exactly that.
Absolutely, and those are notable results, and that is definitely what he needs right now, because you tell the time is now. I would almost say it's the final countdown. It has to happen, and he had that potential. He had his ups and downs, and it seems that it is coming together, and he is using his experience to his best abilities, and that is what he has to do now. He has to get through those races as well. The under 23 circuit of the World Cup. Those are going to be important races for him, where he can show himself at the front, and whenever he's doing the certain elite races, those are races where you have to learn and try to prepare yourself for the next coming years. And I think the talent never really disappeared, but it was just at a certain point it was just difficult to to guess where it will be heading with his career. And I'm happy to see that he was able to get the victory, and overall how he has been going on this season. You tipped him early on in the season, and at that point I was a bit skeptical, but I think that I have to give you the props, because currently he is showing himself at the front. He is having those good results. He is making the moves, and we have to see if he is able to hold on to that, because what you sometimes see as well is that, especially with the under 23 category, that sometimes, as we have seen with Del Grosso, someone is able to dominate from start to finish. But it is also sometimes the case that someone is able to have a very good early season, but when the World Championships are closing in and getting closer and closer, then it at times fades a little bit, and others are getting better and better as well. So I'm interested to see if he's going to be able to hold on to this and being able to also have a very good result at the World Championships. I definitely think that he could be able to do that, but we have to wait and see, and that is definitely going to be an interesting storyline to follow.
I think for the rest, Sparfell, he is a rider who needs to work on winning these races. He's very strong but impatient. We discussed that at the European Championships. He's constantly going at it. He's always at the front making the moves. He needs to learn to wait, because the race is won in the final lap. I was impressed by Vietzi. This is not a good course for him. Once we get more to the muddy races, Vietzi will do well. Van der Boer, this was a really good course for him, and he delivers as a first year. And that brings me also to the last guy I would like to discuss here, Issam, Christophe Bazant. You talked about him quite extensively, and you're a believer in him. I also have some degree of faith in him, and especially like his results as a first-year junior, I wouldn't quickly forget them. It was at this course that he finished third at the World Championships. He's had a lot of illnesses last year, but this is a much needed up for him and a really good result.
Absolutely, and what a place to do it, I guess, as well. Home country as well for him, and that motivates you. But then you still have to, that's not even half the work that you have to put in to get that result eventually. And he seems also be one of those riders that is on the up, and it's just tough when you're still that young in the under 23 category to have you stamp your mark on a race. But he was able to somewhat do that, and I think his result was very good. And for him, it's also, he is definitely, for him, it's not really the time is now or the final countdown. I think that he still has time to progress and to learn and evolve. But he moved through the race quite well and was able to eventually secure the top 10. And I think that is what he has to try to do in every race, and just get better and better and see where it ends up eventually. But for sure, I think that that the way I looked at him as a great talent, it seems to be that he is bouncing back from the period that he had, the illness and all that, and he's on the up. He's definitely on the up.
In the junior races, I think mostly the names we expected. In the women's junior race, it was Lise Revol placing an early attack. Bukowska didn't actually have a horrible start, but just has struggles like getting up to speed in the first lap. She eventually came up to speed and took the win. It really once again shows like to win from Bukowska, you really need to utilize that opening phase and immediately pump time into her. Other than that, I mean, Pelliciotti, Bianchi, Grova, Drova, second years, it was a powerful course. They're typically a bit more powerful, a bit more experienced early on in the season. They carry the starting points from last year in the junior women category to start up front. So not really any surprises up there, I would say. Kind of the expected names, especially Pelliciotti on the podium, is kind of what we had expected at the European Championships. That was our top three. Well, other than Revol, of course. So Revol back, and then we would have expected Pelliciotti to be up there now. So it was kind of what I expected, and there was some group racing, but also not all too much. It kind of all fell in its place quite quickly, and another strong outing for Bukowska.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you said, the start, and it wasn't even a bad start, but I think that Revol actually just had a very good start and was just able to put them all under pressure. And I think that is going to be just a bigger and bigger issue, because not even that Bukowska is having bad starts, but Revol actually being able to have such a good start. And if she is able to pull that off, and maybe the form gets a little bit better, because it felt like Revol was not really 100%. I felt that, it looks like Bukoska is just that bit better at the moment, and he's just able to compensate if there are any gaps and she has to close them. It was very strong ride from her, actually, but I think that it is going to be an issue if you look at the races as a world championships for Bukoska, that if she's not able to sort that out, Revol is definitely one that you don't want to give that opportunity, because she can take that and can actually put her under pressure and eventually bring it home as a victory. So that is definitely something where Bukoska has to work on, but you can definitely see as well that she's super strong.
Finally, the men junior then, a four-way sprint for the win. Sørenbyer taking the win. It were mostly the expected names up front. Grigolini, Petsoe-Rosola, we saw them early in the season. Jumar, we know him from last year. Lejeune was up there, but too many mistakes. A crash on the barriers, a crash earlier on before the pit. Grigolini also, for that part, made quite some mistakes. I think he arguably threw the win away. He had that crash before the pit. Very weird that he didn't change the bike. He went in, took the few steps, and then maybe he thought he'd passed his box, but his mechanic was waving to him. That was interesting. Petsoe-Rosola not powerful enough for this course, but I guess if there's one thing to point out here, it's Jari van Lee. What a ride by him. He moved all the way up. This was his first World Cup. Didn't get selected to any last year and nearly took the win in the sprint. That was definitely an impressive outing by him.
You could also see that he was the one in the group that was like, okay, we're going. He was really preparing for that sprint, and sometimes certain riders, especially when you look at those junior categories, that are just certain riders that have that gift already of the last lap in a way and the final sprint, and he seems to be a guy that has that gift as well. But it was super tricky, I guess, for the juniors to kick the day off. And it was just, I guess, tricky conditions, tricky circumstances. Everyone was making somewhat mistakes. I think for Lejeune, the decisive mistake for sure was the issue that he had on the barrier, that he jumped them and then crashed, and I think that took also just the fun away a little bit, and he was just not really able to continue that on. So that was a shame for him, because he was looking quite good. But Van Lee, that was definitely a very interesting and strong comeback to the front, and also being able then to finish it off with that result. I think that he deserves the praise, and as you said, I think that is definitely a rider to keep in mind for the next coming races. It's hard to judge what that will mean coming on, but I think that was definitely good. And the Italians were a bit disappointing, I have to say. I think that they were strong, arguably maybe even the strongest, but they were making the mistakes too, and that cost them a little bit. But it's just, the course was also, for them at least, it was tricky, because I think that they endured the biggest change from start to finish in terms of how the conditions changed on the course, and that is just very difficult to adapt with. And in the end, it was just it influenced the race quite a bit for them, and Sørenbyer was then able to take the win, and he was definitely super strong as well this race.
It was so cold when they raced. Like, you saw people lining up with long sleeves over their skin suits. I mean, Hettiger, the Austrian, I saw him like at the start finish straight, right, like it was a Tour de France climb. Like, the jersey was unzipped, he got a bit warm, but it was so cold. It was 16 degrees Fahrenheit. It was 9 Celsius below. Had some riders message me like hours after the race, their feet still hadn't properly warmed up and that their hands were cold. It was really, really cold when they raced, and that also takes a toll. Not everyone is used to that. Not everybody has the time to adapt to that. So it was cold all day, and definitely different from the 10 Celsius we've had all season here over in Belgium. So that plays a role, and that's also something that we shouldn't underestimate, the toll that takes. And the nature of the course also means that the implications it has for the rest of the season, we'll need to see. I mean, I would expect Jumar, Grigolini, Rosola, Lejeune, those should remain the top guys. Maybe Delano Heren can make a few little steps to come close. Van Lee, I would really like to see it, and need to see. I mean, he's been good. He's been on the podium of a bunch of these races in Belgium, constantly behind Lejeune, but some distance. Like, if he can continue up this, then we can talk, but always cautious to make decisions, especially on these young guns. That then completes it for the Tabor World Cup. Issam, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We will be back next week to discuss the World Cup in Flamanville, and there will also be youth races there, so that should be interesting. Thanks everyone for listening, and catch you guys soon. Goodbye.